Mayor, we are live.
Okay. We're a minute or two out.
Yep.
By my clock.
They'd asked me to, for the police treatment.
Oh.
He's asked me to.
Oh, look at all these.
They just need to rebuild that building. And they don't have them. Well, they don't put it up, but, somebody was there calling these guys and saying, I can do that.
Oh, congrats. Wow.
Just love to see Laura.
We've been hit up for a live nativity.
All
They're always looking for natives.
So we get.
He was not happy.
Smart coffee shop downstairs.
All right, it is 7 o'clock. Welcome everyone to the December 7th DeSoto City Council meeting, called the meeting to order, and I'd like to start with roll call, please.
Ritter,
Here.
Daniels,
Here.
Michael,
Here.
Murdoch,
Here.
Lane,
Here.
Daniels,
Here.
I am present. Sorry, Danny moving around caught me off guard.
All right. I would invite you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first item tonight is to recognize two of our outgoing council members, both long-serving members of our governing body. Kevin served for 9 years, is that? 7 years, and Lori for 9 years. 2 terms,
12 and a half.
12 and a half. 3 terms plus the
Oh, no,
extra,
exactly.
right. 3 terms plus the extra 7 months that the legislature gave us. So I gave you both an opportunity to share some comments, but tonight we have a plaque we would like to present to each of you, and with our gratitude for your service. And so, were you going to get pictures, Brandon or Whitney?
I think Whitney's in the audience.
Come around. Lori, I put a mark on your side, none of them were apart. But it's just a granite plaque that says, in appreciation of service as a DeSoto City Council member and your years of service, but,
Thank you very much. I got it.
thank
That's
you.
very nice.
It's been
Should
a
we-
pleasure to have you here. And I think that concludes your official duties as DeSoto City Council member. So you can stay for the rest of the meeting. Or
He's out of here. Yeah.
See you, Lori.
Bye, Lori.
I'll watch them this one.
All right. Now, our next item is the swearing-in ceremony for our newly elected council members, Danny Lane, Courtney Tripp, and Victoria McMormon. Who are you?
Thank you, Mayor. We're just going to go in order if that's
Okay.
on the agenda, so we'll start with Danny. you want to put the Bible down, there you go. Yes. All right, raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Danny Lane,
Do hereby solemnly affirm
I hereby solemnly affirm
that I will faithfully uphold the Constitution of the United States
I will faithfully uphold the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas
in the performance of my duties.
in performance of my duties.
I will faithfully and impartially
I will faithfully and impartially
perform all the duties
perform all the duties
of an elected city council member
of an elected city council member
of the city of DeSoto, Kansas,
of the city of DeSoto, Kansas,
under pains and perjury.
under pains and perjury.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, sir. Can we do this here?
Move to Courtney, I think you're up next.
Danny, I'm going to turn the podium so the audience can maybe
Oh, that's a good idea.
see the, there.
There we go.
Then you can.
Did you want this or that, whichever one reads Constitution? Okay. Just hold on to this then. I
I,
state your name,
Courtney Tripp,
do hereby solemnly affirm
do hereby solemnly affirm
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
uphold the Constitution of the United States
uphold the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas
in the performance of my duties.
in the performance of my duties.
I will faithfully and impartially
I will faithfully and impartially
perform all of the duties
perform all of the duties
of an elected council member
of an elected council member
of the city of DeSoto, Kansas,
of the city of DeSoto, Kansas,
under pains and penalties of perjury.
under pains and penalties of perjury.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Victoria, you are wrapping us up. Would you like the Bible, the Constitution, Bible? Okay, perfect. Move this out of the way. There you go. I
I,
state your name.
Victoria McMoran,
Do hereby solemnly affirm.
do sorry,
You're fine.
Say.
Do hereby solemnly affirm
do hereby solemnly affirm
that I will faithfully
that I will faithfully
uphold the Constitution of the United States
uphold the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas
and the Constitution of the State of Kansas
in the performance of my duties.
in the performance of my duties.
I will faithfully and impartially
I will faithfully and impartially
perform all of the duties
and perform all of the duties
of an elected city council member
of an elected city council member
of the city of DeSoto, Kansas,
of the city of DeSoto, Kansas,
under pains and penalties of perjury.
under pains and penalties of perjury.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Kevin, would you rotate the
Absolutely.
podium back?
That's
Either
okay.
seat, we'll take whatever. Thank you.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Leave the mic on.
Yeah. All right, pleased to welcome you both to your seats here on the council, and we will continue with our agenda. The next item on our agenda is the election of a council president. Lori was our council president for a number of years. The way this has happened in the past is nominations from the body and then a vote by the council for that position. So
You gotta check.
unless anybody needs any further explanation, the council president fills the role of the mayor in the absence of the mayor to run the city council meetings or at functions of the city. The veto power does not transfer to the council president, and it's just the running of the council meetings and those ceremonial duties that might be needed. So with that, I would open the floor for nominations.
Mayor, I'd like to nominate Councilman Rob Daniels for council president.
Okay. Any other nominations? All right, then I'll close the nominations, and I would just ask for a voice vote if you're in favor of Councilman Daniels acting as council president. Please say aye.
Aye.
If you're opposed to that, same sign. All right, congratulations, Rob. The thing I will say is what I want to do, and we didn't have time to do it tonight, but I would like to create the council president as a rotating position, so that and because it's going to take some discussion, I don't want to get into that now, but I would like to take this up at a future meeting so that we can discuss what that rotation term should be, and how we might set up the rotation schedule. But I would like to create a rotating position so that that all council people have the opportunity to take part in that role. So, but I didn't want to load tonight's agenda up with another item, so we'll save that for another time. Our next item on the agenda tonight is a public hearing relating to the expansion of the Sunflower Redevelopment District to include all SRL land previously annexed into the city. And I'll say this is largely an administrative item to correct a legal description error in the previous TIF expansion action that was taken by the council. The legal description for the annexation contained an error that was corrected, but that same description had all subsequently been used for the TIF district, and so it was that error was carried through and now needs to be corrected to reflect the correct boundary. So I think Patrick, unless you have some additional introductory information for the item.
Nope. Vince from Pulcinelli is here if there are any questions, but as you said, we already tried to do this to expand the TIF district over all the land that was annexed into the city, but due to an error in the legal description submitted, this acreage that is at issue tonight did not. So this will be the second public hearing essentially we've had on this matter.
All right. So with that, I will officially open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak this item, please approach the podium, state your name and address.
Charlotte O'Hara, 15712 Windsor Street. I was hoping that you could show the difference between what the legal description was on the first TIF district and where that actual increase is going to be. Nancy Moneymaker is here, and she wanted to speak, but she was not able to get a hold of those documents. And I just talked to
Brandon. Yeah.
Corey, right?
Brandon.
Brandon, I'm sorry, Brandon, and he indicated that that information would be made public before the public hearing. So because she asked for it and she was not given that, so.
Yeah.
That's just a request.
I'm going to share my understanding. It's the same area. There was an error in the legal description so that it didn't correctly enclose the area, but the exhibit that showed the area to be in the TIF did not, the physical shape of it didn't change. There was a Scrivener's error is what it's called in the legal description that caused the description not to close.
Correct. Yes, I understand that.
So there's no area, new area that's added.
Well, but where was the area that was not included?
As I said, there was no area that was not included. There was a Scrivener's error in the description where a distance of variance
I understand it, but because I mean, I was told by the chief legal counsel at the county that it actually was some parkland, and all I'm trying to do is just get clarity so that the public understands what was the original TIF district with the error, and so then what you're trying to do tonight is to have the legal description match what your original map showed. I understand that, but the public Nancy Moneymaker in particular, and I would like to understand it too, is exactly what was not included in that first legal description.
I can address that, and it's pretty simple. And Vince with Pulcinelli, feel free to speak up, but as I recall, the Park District, prior to us annexing, there was some miscommunication to the Park District, but the 130 acres of parkland inadvertently, because of an error, was included in the legal description for us annexing. As it turned out, at that point in time, the Park District had not filed a consent to annex, so essentially that legal description, we corrected it to exclude the 130 acres of parkland. So currently the parkland, that 130 acres, is not annexed into the city, but all of the remainder of Sunflower is.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted clarification. So this new legal description is going to take the parkland out of the TIF district, correct?
Yeah, it can't, since that park ground
It's not
is
even not in the
annexed,
city
so,
limits.
Right, we can't extend the
Okay.
TIF district over there.
Okay, well, I just wanted clarification on that. And, I also think that Panasonic, according to the Kansas City Star about 2 months ago, indicated that they are going to be eligible, and they are eligible for another $6.8 billion of federal money for this particular development here in DeSoto. And if that money is forthcoming, the need for the $200 million that you folks have given them in a TIF district really needs to be reconsidered. And the Supreme Court, Kansas Supreme Court, under Topeka versus Mid-America Motorsports Park, I believe that you have the authority that you could rescind that agreement. So anyway, just something to think about, and I really appreciate you guys visiting back and forth with me, because it certainly makes the public understand that you're willing to communicate, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to make a comment? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. We will move on with our agenda. Our next item is our consent agenda. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes from November 16th, approval of pay ordinance number 963, and approval of cereal malt beverage license with Lost 3 Carnalis, Inc. Any item on the consent agenda that anyone would wish to remove for further discussion? Or a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Tripp? And use, if you know where your button is for your microphone.
Push this button right there.
We'll have a little housekeeping tonight.
Yeah.
Tripp,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hunamichael.
Yes.
McMoran,
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mayor, I do have a comment or question that cannot be clarified now because Mrs. O'Hara left the auditorium.
Okay.
But she came up and stated her name and address as her personal address, but she also addressed the fact that she used her position to check on some of the facts. So I'd like clarification whether she was here as an individual or as a county commissioner.
Okay. Noted. All right. Our next item tonight is call to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on tonight's agenda. The comments that are discussed under call to public may or may not be acted on by the council during this meeting. There is a 4-minute time limit. If you wish to address the council, please come forward, state your name and address, and we will take your comments. All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Item 3 is old business, and we do not have any, so we will go to item 4A. Consider city cooperating with Johnson County Sheriff's Office regarding placement of license plate, readers throughout the city, funded by Department of Justice COPS grant.
Yes, council, we just wanted to bring this to your attention. Technically, the mayor and I met with the individual from the sheriff's office. Unfortunately, he could not be here this evening. He did mention if you had any questions, he'd be happy to come to the meeting on the 21st. He just had a conflict for tonight, but these are what he'd like to place with this grant are license plate readers, and they're not used in any type of active law enforcement. They're more used in when they're doing investigations and you know, if there's a particular plate that passed as part of like a criminal investigation, that's the use they have. Under our ordinances, really all they need is a right-of-way, make a right-of-way application that will be processed as are others. But we just thought, given the program, we thought it'd be worthwhile to bring it to your attention and open it up to any discussions or concerns that you had.
Good.
Yeah, I do have some questions or comments, and so we don't have anybody here representing this tonight, right? So we don't really have anybody to answer. But I guess, you know, I've seen them going up around the metro, the county, or whatever. I've noticed them, particularly in Overland Park, up and down Metcalf, that kind of thing. And I get the value associated, particularly with, you know, crime and whatnot. But I think it's worth some public discussion. Since all we have is this letter that's really just describing what this is, I think we need some public discussion around privacy, around data security, and around really the intent of use. You know, letter says not intended for traffic, but that's just this letter tonight. You know, I think we need something that, particularly in terms of, you know, analysis of big data and things like that. You know, there could be opportunities to start to figure out patterns of people's behavior. And then there's more the practical aspect of, you know, how are they, what are they going to get mounted on? And typically I've seen them mounted on city traffic signals. For the one over K10 at Corliss, I assume, you know, mounted on the bridge, that's pretty easy. At K10 in Lexington, I assume that they'll use the future poles. But we really, you know, we've got a signal at 83rd and Kill Creek at this point. Are they going to install new poles? You know, so what's the practical aspect of the physical installation? But I assume this grant, the COPS grant that they're using to install these, probably came with some guidelines as to the data that it is collecting. And I think we ought to be made privy to what that is, what they can use the data from collecting people's license plates. You know, the ones on K10 are maybe, you know, a lot of transient activity, but I think our citizens are going to want to know something about license plate readers at K83 and Kill Creek, and exactly what are they tracking. So I got concerns over data security, data privacy, and actual use.
Okay. Courtney?
Yeah, I think my main question was if there be notice either posted that at the place or other public kind of awareness of this, just so that people, you know, I know when you drive through an area that's being, where the traffic is being monitored by, you know, radar or aerial, there's always a notice, so you're aware of that kind of surveil that's happening. So that was one of my concerns, was just making sure that people weren't unaware of the addition of these to the town.
All right.
Yeah, in addition to what's already been stated, there's also not an intent of whether it's temporary or permanent or longevity of.
Okay. Victoria, anything? Danny?
No, nothing.
All right. Well, I think we've got a good list of questions so that the representative come back prepared, knowing what our questions are. So With that, I guess I would ask for a motion to table this until our December 21st meeting.
I will make a motion to table agenda item 4A.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll take that up again when the representative can be here. Item 4B, consider contract amendment 2 with Garney in the amount of $14,106,176 for the water treatment plant project. Joe, is this you?
Yes, sir. So this is the second guarantee maximum price. We did one back a couple months ago, GMP 1, this is GMP 2. So this is ordering equipment for the water treatment plant. And you can see on the page we had 10 bid packages, all the way from filter equipment down to precast work packages. These were all bid out to vendors, contractors, and then a selection process between the contractor, HDR, or design engineer, and then confirmation from staff to review those. Generally, they were the low bids that met the spec and were able to provide the equipment within the time frame to be able to have the water plant up and running to meet Panasonic's deadlines for receiving water. There will be one more guarantee maximum price. That will be GMP 3. That will set the total construction cost for the water treatment plant. So we'll have one more GMP that will come in late February, probably no later than the first council meeting in March. That would then be the final one, and we will have our maximum price for the construction of the treatment plant. The contractor should be on site here sometime after the first year, starting doing some of the work for some of the items that were in the first GMP 1. So tonight we're asking the council to approve GMP 2 and authorize the city administrator to sign the agreement.
Before we go into, Mike, would you want to provide just for our new members and a refresher for all of us, where the funds for this $14 million will be coming from?
This is funding that is coming as a result of the tax increment financing incentive district that we have out at the Astro Enterprise Park. We have a development agreement with Panasonic that captures those, what otherwise would be property tax revenues, and can pay for public improvements such as this. So this is one of the many improvements that we're doing. This water treatment plant is currently estimated somewhere around $42 million. So we have $14 million chunk of it now. So these will be payments that are actually made by Panasonic now. We have funds already available that have already been transferred to us for this GMP. We will have the funds for the remaining of the project later on, early next year. Panasonic is distributing those funds to us now, and they will use the TIF revenues over the 20-year period to essentially reimburse themselves for these funds. So it's easy to say Panasonic is paying for this. They are up front, which is unique. Usually these are bonded, but they're paying for this up front. But they will be reimbursed over the 20-year life of the TIF that's in place. It's the same with the sewer treatment plant. We'll have bids coming up for that. It's the same with the water tower facility that we're building and the 5 miles of sanitary sewer line work that's going on now. So that's the funding source. We have cash in the bank for this element, and our development agreement has provisions for additional cash transfers preceding similar GMPs for the rest of this project and for the sewer and the water tower.
Yeah. I know if I had been asked to vote on a $14 million contract on my first meeting, I would want to know where in the world are we going to get the money? So,
Mayor, if I can.
Certainly.
So Mrs. O'Hara got up here and was talking about the Panasonic funding, that there's possible other amounts and that maybe the city should give up the TIF funds. But the fact is the TIF funds end up being basically a no-interest loan in advance to the city for the horizontal infrastructure, that if we gave up that money, we would not have a new water plant. We would not have the water treatment upgrades. So the money that's being provided through the TIF is not lining the Panasonic, lining SRL's pockets with revenue, but it has to be spent on horizontal infrastructure that's benefiting the city, that the city ends up owning. as well as having private funds match the TIF funds that were originally there, to where the return is actually a higher return on investment with basically no interest loan that gets us, without having to bond, the new water plant, entirely new water plant, upgraded sewer plant that benefits the city in ways that we would not be able to do without the development.
Yeah, Rob, I just add on to that a little more. I appreciate, the comment that it's not going to Panasonic to line their pockets, and it's also not coming out of the city coffers.
Or residential taxes.
Right. There's a misconception that with the incentive that the city's giving money away, it's Panasonic is paying for the cost of development.
Courtney, any questions? Comments?
This is more specific to looking at the
Certainly.
water equipment, and that was, it talks about that we're, concerning cost, experience, delivery time, et cetera. And I was wondering to what extent we were also looking at energy efficiency of the motors running this equipment, as well as variable speed drives and other kind of sustainability type considerations.
Sure. Joe, do you have a response to that question?
Well, as far as the pumps, the pumps will be the pumps, but all of them will have variable drive devices on them so that we can control the pumps, so we can control as we have more volume of water that we need to process. So they won't run full speed beginning day one. This is a 4 million gallon with 8 million gallon maximum capacity. So we'll start out with around 4 million gallons, and as we ramp up water production for development and for the city expanding, then the pumps that are there will be able to handle that, and we don't have to run them at full speed until we actually need them. So we're looking at that. We'll electrical, LED lighting, everywhere we can use components that are energy efficient, then yes, we will be using them. The biggest factor we're gonna have are the pumps that push the water through the plant. So that's where you're gonna have your expense, and the pumps are sized to accommodate the volume of water that we need to push through the plant.
Yeah, and just knowing some of the motor technology out there is now moving to IE5, which is considered ultra premium efficiency. Just wanting to make sure we're taking a look at that, since this is going to be, a water plant taking us well into the future, and there are advancements in the efficiency running there.
Yeah.
So.
And we're looking at that both at the water plant, the wastewater treatment plant, and then even our well field. A lot of our wells were just on-off switches. As we're upgrading those, they're all variable drive devices, so that we can have a lot better control and be able to control the speed and the amount of electricity that we use.
Super.
Victoria, Danny? All right.
Yeah, see, Joe, you got technical expertise.
Right,
You have to
exactly.
deal with
I
that.
know, right?
No, just that much.
She knows her pumps.
I'm gonna have to read up on them.
So Mayor, I'll make a motion, we approve Amendment 2 in the amount of $14,106,176 and authorize the city administrator to execute the amendment.
And I will second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Lane?
Yes.
McMorrin?
Yes.
Hunter Michael?
Yes.
Daniels?
Yes.
Tripp?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item C, consider ordinance 2597 initiating eminent domain proceedings for sanitary sewer lift station installation near Edgerton Road and West 92nd Street.
I'll just briefly comment on that, maybe mostly for the benefit of the new members. We have been acquiring many easements and land for the sewer project to serve Panasonic. The project is on a very tight timeline. With all of these, we extensively discussed with the property owners, try to negotiate a voluntary acquisition of the easements, and this property is no exception. We've had many discussions with this property owner and continue to have those. But the eminent domain process through the court system takes usually about 90 days. So this one's a good example of where we need to go ahead and get filed to at least get that process started. So if negotiations with the property owner break down, then you know, we'll have this as a backup through the court
Mayor,
system.
I just realized I
Yeah.
got a conflict on. Sorry about that.
Sorry, I should have. Brandon, would you note that Councilman Hannah Michaels leaving the meeting?
So noted.
And I'll stand for any questions if anybody has any.
Well, I guess, so what I'd say is I've met with Mr. Vandenberg, and so we're gonna continue to negotiate with him, and I hope that we can come, I think we will, actually. I had a good meeting with him and a couple of follow-up phone calls that were good. And so those efforts to secure the easements via a negotiation are gonna continue. It's just, schedules require that we start the process, as Patrick explained. Rob, I'm sorry, cut you off.
Oh, that's fine. A couple clarifications, easements or right-of-ways on these?
I think this one is both, isn't it, Mike?
No, this is just easement.
Okay,
Yeah.
just easement, all right.
And then just a comment on the whole eminent domain, right-of-way easements. I know we moved into our property years and years back, at which point the plan was to actually split our lot and have my parents build on the front portion of our property. We did do the lot split, but my parents ended up buying a property down the street. But when we moved into that property, there was an easement there already. When we went to do the lot split, we had to sign over to the city a right-of-way and give the city property that we did not get compensation for. But it is a right-of-way easement, which means we still have complete use of that property. We haven't given up the use of the property. And that's what's being acquired here. So this is not condemnation of houses, buildings. It's not even taking the usage right away from the people to be able to use it. It's the ability to have the sewer lines or water lines be placed through that area and accessed if needed for maintenance and repairs. And they're getting compensation that I didn't even get when I had split my lot. So it's not eminent domain of we're taking and trying to build another business or an enterprise on their property. It's simply that right of way that will still remain to them available to use for their property.
And just to clarify, they will lose a little bit because we will have a lift station, we'll have a physical
On this one.
installation, so there's gonna be a portion of that.
Is that on all the properties or just?
No,
that's
it's
just
this one. That's
this
Ron
one.
Van Leeuwenhoek
But as far
property.
as just general, the other eminent
The other
domains,
ones,
the other right of ways we've been acquiring and will continue to acquire.
Right.
So,
I know, do you have any questions, Victoria? I'm sorry, Courtney.
It's okay. Just clarify to make sure I understand. So this, at this point, this is just kind of, we're running parallel tracks, so to speak. We're still pursuing negotiations, even if we vote in favor of this tonight. But this is just because of the timelines, this authorization is required in case it comes to that. Am I understanding that properly?
This filing, if we need to continue to pursue that, all that's done in court are 3 appraisers are appointed, and then they meet to put a value on the property. So that's the process. So that we are going down that track, but it takes time to appoint the appraisers. The judge has to do that. There has to be a hearing appointing appraisers. So we will continue to do that as we continue to
and
talk.
if there is an agreement, then this just gets
Yeah,
dropped.
it just goes away.
Dropped and goes away. And I was gonna say, I would probably also add, historically, so far, we've had to, not had to take any, we've had agreements on everything up to this point. I mean, we've had some filings, but eventually it came to agreements on almost everything at this point, haven't we?
There were a couple.
Yeah, there are a couple we
Mhm.
did not, but
Okay.
most of them,
Yeah.
So this is the rare case that
yeah.
it actually goes to the full fruition of.
And for clarification, on the actual condemnation action, there would be another action required by the council to,
Just to pay
just to pay.
pay in the money
Alright,
to the
alright.
court, yeah.
All right. Does that answer your question? Anything,
No, shoot, same questions.
Danny?
Thank you. Do we have an ordinance number?
Yeah.
It's on the page, yeah, 2597.
I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance number 2597.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Daniels,
Yes.
Lane,
Yes.
McMorrin,
Yes.
Tripp,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. All right, our next item is item D, consider resolution 2028 revising city fee resolution to include fees related to economic development incentives.
Yes, council, for several years now, we have had $1,000 fee that anyone wanting economic development incentives through the city. And that application fee is non-refundable. And the submission of the application starts a process where, for example, Mike and the finance committee meet with the applicant, and that progresses eventually to the council. We've also traditionally required a escrow fund that the city uses when professional staff, for example, Jeff White with Columbia Capital, he's been with the city for years and years. This escrow fund covers, for example, Jeff's fees and then also bond counsel fees needed throughout the transaction. As we've gotten busier, as we've had additional development activity in the city, we have realized that we're at a step with some of our other communities in that the application fee that we have is very low, and frankly, I think we've had it for at least 10 years. We've never raised it. Also, another thing that we've never captured, many communities, when there are bond issues that are done by the city on behalf of private developers, a lot of communities will charge what's called an origination fee, and that goes to the city. So in talking with Jeff White, Kevin Wimpy, and Mike and I, we think it's appropriate, given the uptick in issues of IRBs that we've had. So this fee resolution is just sort of codifying our fees that we will have moving forward. They will not apply to any applications that have been submitted prior to January 1 of 2024. So with that, I'll stand for any questions. And of course, Jeff White, if you have any questions for him as far as other communities, I know Jeff works with several other communities in the area.
Okay. Any questions, Danny?
Thank you.
Rob? Courtney?
I was just curious, what's our current fees at?
$1,000 for
Okay.
the application fee and the escrow fund. But outside of that, we do the annual administrative fee is also at $1,000. So we're raising the application fee from $1,000 to $2,500, and then the annual fee to the $2,500 per year. That also would not apply to any existing bonds that we have.
Just for my own education, it'd be great to understand, since we have here, a little bit of the benchmarking with some of the other communities and where we stand.
Yeah, I don't know. So Overland Park, the fees that you're looking at, they are the same as Overland Park. Some of the communities, for example, Olathe and I believe Lenexa, when I looked at those, they're they're essentially near the same, but they do a percentage, like it's 0.025, and it just seemed kind of a little, quite a bit of math to figure that out. So I thought just the way it's listed here is simple. So, but yeah, when I sent out a request on the listserv, I got information back from Olathe, Overland Park, and then looked at some of the other communities, Lenexa and Leawood. I know Edgerton has similar fees. But yeah, if you'd like more study and more communities, certainly we can do that. But
No, just good to understand kind of where this is with our peers, especially since it sounds like we haven't caught up in a while.
yes, for sure. Yep.
Thanks.
Question on the origination fee, will that come out of the bond proceeds then? Or is there a cost that we're currently incurring that'll offset, or is that paid by the applicant?
Yeah, my understanding is that's paid by the applicant. It's part of the transaction that comes out of the transaction.
Okay.
Is that your understanding, Jeff? Yeah.
And is that up front or at the time the bonds are sold, or?
I believe it's up front.
At the time the bonds are sold.
Okay. Jeff would be the one to know that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jeff White with Columbia Capital. Congratulations to all three of you. Condolences. I like I like the part of the swearing in where they talk about pains. So that's very, very true. Yes, so the idea of an origination fee is it is a fee associated with the origination of the issuance of bonds. So that's paid at the time the bonds are issued. By way of background, we've talked about TIFs, and now we're talking about tax abatements. So let me take 2 minutes really quick. There are basically three kinds of buckets that economic development incentives in Kansas fall into. We have incentives that take existing taxes, capture those, and redirect them to the project. That in that bucket, the quintessential example is TIF, tax increment financing, which we've talked about tonight. We have another sort of bucket of tax incentives where we take taxes that would be due and we abate those. We don't require the beneficiary to pay those taxes. A great example of that is tax abatement. And I want to come back to tax abatement in a second because it sounds simple and it's goofily difficult here. And then the third category we don't have on the agenda tonight, it would have been fun had it been on to make the illustration, is sort of an overlay of new taxes. And so an example of that would be a community improvement district where we draw a box around an area of the city, and we say in this particular area we are going to charge folks that purchase goods and services in that area that are subject to retail sales tax an additional 1 cent, for instance, on top of what they already pay to the city, the county, and the state. So those are generally the three buckets. We create new taxes. We take existing taxes, we capture them and redirect them for project costs, or we take taxes that would have been due and we abate them. So on the would have been due and abate them, in most cases, in order to grant a tax abatement, we can't just wave a magic wand and say, hey business, your taxes would have been $100 a year, now they're gonna be $75 a year. The way we go about that is that we take the property off the tax rolls and then we require the applicant by contract to put some taxes back on the tax rolls in the form of a payment in lieu of taxes. The way we take the property off the tax rolls is that we go through this very strange structure where the applicant leases the property to the city, which takes it off the tax rolls. The city leases it back to them. We then issue these bonds, industrial revenue bonds, which pay for the project improvements. In almost every case, those industrial revenue bonds are purchased by the applicant or its bank. So you have this goofy left pocket to right pocket bond issue which is not the way when we're talking about other kinds of bonds. We'll get there eventually, where the city's borrowing money to pay for capital improvements. In this particular case, the use of the bonds meets the statutory requirement for us to provide the tax incentive in the first place. And so when we're talking about an origination fee, we're talking about a fee that is paid to the city to be the issuer of the bonds. The bonds are in the city's name. That origination fee is generally paid at closing on the bond transaction. Those dollars come directly to the city. They're not shared with other taxing entities. And under Kansas law, we have to use those broadly for quote-unquote economic development purposes. So it's always good to sort of earmark those in an economic development fund or something like that, so that we make sure that we're using those for economic development purposes. Broadly speaking, it's sort of anything you want to think about as sort of as what your mind would define as economic development, including, for instance, things like staff costs and those types of things which are hard to capture otherwise. But it could also be infrastructure, water and sewer, streets, those kinds of things for a specific project.
I was just about to say everything you said.
Yeah, long answer for a short question, but the context might be helpful.
One additional point on that would be that IRB bonds do not affect the city's credit rating as well.
100% correct. In fact, the state law under which we issue those industrial revenue bonds specifically precludes the city from putting itself at risk for the repayment of those bonds.
And as always, Jeff, appreciate your expertise. Jeff's been great all through the Panasonic and lots of other projects. But anyway, the resolution is 2028.
Any other questions from council? Are we ready for a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we approve resolution number 2028 as presented in the council packet tonight.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Tripp?
Yes.
Daniels?
Yes.
Hanamichael?
Yes.
McMorran?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, item E, consider resolution 2029 authorizing an assignment of economic incentives regarding the Arbor Ridge Townhomes development. So this is a previously approved incentive that now wishes to be assigned or reassigned to another party interested in the project, correct?
Correct. So the council, yes, this is sort of a redo in a way in that you previously authorized these economic incentives to this project. The only thing essentially that is changing is Dave Anderson, who's here in the audience. He is taking over 18 of the units to develop. And in order to do that and get the benefit of the economic incentive, it's necessary that we approve this resolution authorizing the assignment, essentially breaking the project into two pieces. The large share being developed by Dave Anderson's group, and then the remaining 4 units staying with Dustin Baker and his group. So,
All right.
approving resolution 2029 will complete the transaction.
Any questions from council? Danny? Victoria? Rob? Courtney? Kevin?
No.
All right.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2029 authorizing the assignment of economic incentives regarding the Arbor Ridge Townhomes development.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Lane?
Yes.
McMorran?
Yes.
Hanamichael?
Yes.
Daniels?
Yes.
Tripp?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Item F, consider ordinance 2598 regarding the expansion of the Sunflower Redevelopment District to include SRL land previously annexed into the city.
Yes, council, this was the subject of the public hearing that we had. The ordinance before you will expand the TIF district to now include all of the land of Sunflower that has been annexed into the city, minus the 103 acres of parkland.
So to clarify, this is actually contracting what we did by the parkland distance?
Yeah.
Because we've already passed the resolution annexing it, so, I mean, in essence, we're really
In a way, but
contracting it by the parkland.
that when it's over
Yeah.
2,500 acres essentially. So prior to you taking this action, there's roughly 2,500 acres at Sunflower that is not in the TIF district. So, but I get your point that
But we already did that 2,500, didn't we?
tried to, but because of that
Okay.
legal
Okay, they got kicked back.
description, it had to,
It was sort of like having the wrong version.
So,
yeah.
So I got the two
so,
versions
so it never
mixed
got
up.
filed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Never got filed. Is it right this time?
Yes, we had the county, I sent the legals to the county
'Cause they were the ones
recorder's office.
They were the ones that caught it with the match, right?
So we're expanding
Yes.
it, but based upon what the previous council had done, it's actually expanding it slightly less.
True,
Yeah.
true.
So,
And making it match.
yeah.
Yeah.
Questions?
So can county-owned land be in the city limits, or is it have to be excluded? Or no? Okay.
We have some county-owned land, right?
In
We
the
annexed
in the city boundaries?
part of
Parkland,
the park.
Dog park's been.
yeah, the dog park.
Yeah.
Yeah, dog park.
Okay.
Yeah, same with state-owned land or.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve the attached ordinance 2598 as written.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hunter-Michael.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Tripp.
Yes.
McMorran.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Item G, discuss multipurpose community facility supporting workforce, health, wellness, and childcare.
Yes, council. As many things that come before us these days, this is a very big issue on potentially a very tight time frame with pretty big community-wide impacts. Discussions about ownership, operation, construction of community centers often take communities, especially of our size, years or decades to work through. The details of that, both the funding, the construction, the operation, they're typically losers from an operational standpoint, and there are a multitude of issues, impactful policy issues that the governing bodies must make, usually with a robust community feedback and community input process that stands behind the decision that's ultimately made. In this case, however, there is a pretty substantial positive opportunity to apply for a significant amount of grant funding to construct the facility. And that is through a program that's run by the Kansas Children's Cabinet Trust Fund. In the memo, I've abbreviated that. I will say before I go much further, Brandon really was integrally involved with this, and Sheila Shockey, our consultant, was really the one that picked up, those two kind of picked this up and did a lot of the background work here that you see that's in the staff report. I'm not the subject matter expert on it, but Brandon here is closer than I am,
Yeah.
and maybe Sheila is as well. I thought Sheila was going to be online, but I don't see her here. So what we wanted to do, because we did talk about this during a work session in October with I think most of the previous council, it was mentioned that this grant opportunity existed, and did we have the council's tacit approval to go ahead and pursue that opportunity to the extent we can make things happen before this deadline that's occurring on December 18th. And the council decided, yeah, go ahead, spend the consulting, spend staff resources to do that. So they've been very busy, busier than I have on this topic, establishing what it would be, the types of services, how big it needed to be, a very rough cost estimate of how much a center like this might be in the city. And to come to this point now where we would be ready to make that application and proceed and meet that December 18th deadline, but if we chose to do that, we would need at least tacit approval from this body that we are serious about building such a facility, running such a facility, and contributing up to $3 million of our own funds toward that effort. In the end, what was decided, the conclusion that was reached was the facility is going to be about a $20 million facility. Again, very rough, very preliminary. It'll need about 7 to 10 acres of land to construct that facility. And so if the council wants to move forward tonight, that option is open to you. But internally, Brandon and I both felt like it was not a fair position to put you in necessarily, to have to make this essentially $3 million decision for the community and have to make this commitment. Although in the end, even if we're awarded grant funding, we're not legally obligated to pursue anything until the grant agreement is reached, at which time the future decision could be made to forego that, although we would have since bothered the Children's Trust Fund with the application, and they would have allocated the money, and so there would have been some ramifications to our partners there at the state. So it's a weighty issue, it's a complicated issue, not one that that we internally take lightly, and obviously you don't either. But the option is there if you want to take those steps tonight. So with that, I think I'll just step through the rest of the staff report to kind of explain what it is that's being proposed, both the physical improvements and the programming activities. Explain a little bit of really what is an enthusiastic support from partners like USD 232 and the Kansas University Medical Center to be a part of this effort and take advantage of this. We'll also say before we kind of get started that the concept of a community center, indoor recreation, wellness, specifically daycare, were ones that rank very highly on a citizen satisfaction survey that we did a little more than a year ago. Ranked very highly on those on the results there. So community center is high on the list. It's one that we've thrown. It's a word we've thrown around a lot in the past. A desire to have more indoor space for recreation, indoor swimming, these sorts of things. It's not essentially been tied to childcare up to this point, and not necessarily been tied to healthcare facilities. But those opportunities and those are highly desired in the community as well. So, with that as a basis, I don't want to belabor too much, but I don't want to breeze through this, and have you held your questions to the end. Let's just have a discussion. And so I'll just kind of proceed through this, and let's stop and talk about each step along the way if you wish. So with that, the proposed project is a $20 million community facility. Please remember all the caveats to this. Extremely preliminary, was done without the benefit of any council input, without the benefit of any community input. Really has just been staff working on this for about 6 weeks. So, $20 million community facility. It would be a 40,000 square foot facility. 30,000 of that would be dedicated to a fitness and wellness programming, indoor pool, dive well, meeting rooms, and space to host events. 10,000 of it would be a child care center for child care to serve birth to 5 years of age. Facility purpose and target outcomes is increased physical, mental. I don't want to just read this to you, but you can see the desired targeted outcomes there. This talks a lot like a grant application because it's would form the basis. This would be the grant application. Proposed location, we have had discussions with the University of Kansas Health Systems, who owns 2 parcels along 91st Street between 91st and K10 there, as shown on this map. They've indicated a willingness to sell to the city 7 to 10 acres of that land at a fair market value price.
And that's a big change from where they've been when they were Olathe Health System, where they weren't willing to do anything.
It's a massive change. It's a massive win. It's a
So that
massive
is,
win. Yeah,
that's a huge deal.
it is. It is. We were
Opportunity.
very, and Brandon, you can chime in, but very encouraged by their cooperation, their engagement. Not that Olathe Med would have told us to go fly a kite, but you know, it was very responsive. They also see the need for wellness programming here in the city, and are interested in pursuing it. Timeline: if we pursue the grant, this thing has to be done by June of 2026. So that's extremely fast, just like everything else we're doing. That's a very fast timeline to stand up something like
What's
this.
driving that?
The grant opportunity has a deadline that you have to be done with your construction by then. That's what's driving it.
Mike, it's ARPA funds. That's why. So this is leftover ARPA funds that the state is trying to expend, which is why those funds need to be allocated and then expended by 2026. That's why they're on that timeline.
And of course, if we decide not to pursue that grant, or if we pursue it and don't get it, then we're on our own timeline. There's no urgency. Our role under the currently contemplated, if we pursue the grant process, we would have to commit that, you know, we're going to serve as a project sponsor. We're going to be the lead applicant for that. We're going to construct the facility, own the facility, and as needed, look for partners to rent out, to both contract for its operation and also rent out space to supplement revenue streams there. So again, application deadline is December 17th. Project timeline we kind of just got out, just very aggressive 2026 completion date if we pursue the funding. The budget and source of funding I've talked about already. $20 million budget. That's based on a very thumbnail, broad brush estimate of about $500 per square feet for similar community center construction. The grant award, the stated on the grant award was they want to award chunks of $500,000 to $5 million. They have total of $38 million. So this would be a departure from their stated, the state's stated purpose and distribution of those funds, but they would have the discretion to award DeSoto the $20 million. That's not beyond the capability for them to do that.
Have we heard whether this was a wide sought after grant, or is it one that hasn't, because the timelines has not been heavily pursued?
Brandon, has Sheila given you much insight on that?
There are people that are other communities that are looking at it, but the tight timeline is the issue.
Sheila, I see that you're on. Can you hear us? Are you with us? Did you hear?
I am.
Well, thank you for joining. I hope I haven't said anything that you would contradict so
You're
far.
right on.
Okay.
No, they have awarded to several cities. Emporia and Lawrence were two that I'm aware of, and for the first round of the grant, and each of those got a $5 million allocation. So they do have quite a bit of funding left for this round.
I think the question was more like, what's the interest? What's the competition here in this round? I think it was more.
Oh, we don't know who the other community folks are that are pursuing it, but as Brandon indicated, the issue really is it's construction money, and so having all of your ducks in a row kind of ready for construction is the limiting factor for a lot of the communities that are going to apply, and so very few of them would apply for a brand new facility. A lot of them would add on to existing facilities that they already have in terms of childcare. So I think there'll be smaller grant amounts for others. There won't be probably this big concept of a $20 million facility.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on that? Yeah.
With this being a kind of departure from its stated, range, an application for that 20 million, do we have any indication that, they're open to that kind of reconsideration of allocation, or?
Sheila, can you field that one?
Yeah, they contacted the state of Kansas Department of Commerce via Doug Bach originally when they received the grant, and we were working with one of their staff members on childcare issues already. And I'm speaking of the Children's Trust Fund, the Kansas Children's Trust Fund. And so they reached out about DeSoto because they knew the need was so high here in terms of childcare need for birth to 5 due to the Panasonic plant and other development that will be coming to your community. So they are aware of the Department of Commerce has been in contact, and the governor's office can't directly influence the funding, but there'll be some discussion, not formal support letter that would be from the governor's office.
And just as background for our new members, Panasonic's not planning any on-site childcare of any kind.
Not to our knowledge, correct.
Not to our knowledge.
And they have, they were a late, Sheila, we did get a late letter of support from them that's not in your packet. Yeah.
Yeah, they're very supportive of an off-site location, and we've been in discusson with them as well as Huhtamaki about potentially securing slots in the child care facility so that it's, you know, more sustainable funding for that, because they would allocate a certain number to their staff.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I did overhear one time at an event, the governor telling the mayor directly to start working on childcare. Did she not?
He did, yes, he
Okay,
did.
okay, so, for what that's worth. Let's move on to then the facility operations, because this is another pretty weighty policy issue that communities, often a discussion, and that's a partnership with an outside partner to operate the facility. Sheila has been in direct contact with the YMCA of Greater Kansas City, who's expressed keen interest in being involved with this project to operate that facility. As stated here in the staff report, they've got a good reputation for running good programs. They operate multi-level childcare across Kansas City and currently serve over 3,500 children each day. Obviously, they're a nonprofit organization, and so the benefits to having them operate the facility rather than the cities try and stand up staffing and have that essentially become an apartment, there are numerous benefits to that. And so, as this comes together, of course, devil's in the details, but the concept now would be to contract operations through YMCA.
Has your school been talked anything about this on the pool and the?
Yeah.
So they're involved in this too?
Yep, we do have a letter of support from USD 232, who's expressed interest in, involvement with the pool for their swim teams, but also involvement with early childhood learning, which is a priority for them, and then work study and workforce development aspects. Being right across the street from the high school, there's opportunities there. So they did provide a letter of support that articulated some of those benefits for them. Obviously, still very on in the process, but that's part of the potential that we would have to offset initial annual revenue shortfalls, especially in the first several years, and then also supplement construction costs as well, if the school was interested in assisting with the construction of the aquatic center part of it.
I know Michelle Mages, the athletic director, has been very interested in an auditorium or pool here, because we're the only school district that doesn't have our own
Indoor.
pool for our own swim team and dive team.
Yeah. So there's opportunities there. In the staff report, Sheila put together a pro forma financials for the first 5 years. I won't bore you. They're exciting numbers. I don't want to say they're boring, but I won't belabor them. The net after for the first 5 years, the facility is projected to lose money. $1 million in the first year, $600,000 in the second year, $300,000 in the third, and you can see. Based on YMCA's track record with other facilities, there is a potential that the facility would essentially break even and be self-sufficient year six and beyond. through membership and the childcare enrollment and dues and grants and other things like that. Obviously, no guarantees on any of that. There is a risk to taking on an effort like this, and the risk is that you're significantly supplementing its operations for generations to come. And we've seen that happen.
That risk can be negative, it can be positive, because Lenexa Rec Center has exceeded their membership numbers beyond what they ever projected.
Yeah. That's yet another one of these weighty policy issues, you know. Just wait and see type this. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough right now to be super conservative, right? Like we like to be when we're budgeting things. We like to be very conservative. So that's a reality. We talked a little bit about the school district. I think I won't belabor that again. The school district has expressed interest in those in the pool and also early childhood education facility. University of Kansas Health Systems, we talked about their enthusiasm for the project and in selling the property. They're also interested in leasing 10 to 16,000 square feet for a clinical presence in the facility. Don't know exactly what specific services might be needed, but that will be sort of a market study that they'll have to work through, but they're interested in establishing a presence here, and they know with the workforce that's coming with Panasonic and what's happening at Flint.
Would that be out of the 40,000, or would that expand to?
No, it'd be part of the 40,000. So we've got 40,000 total, 10,000 childcare. This would be part of the 30,000.
Okay.
Yeah. It would be. Is that right, Brandon?
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, they were expressed. In that meeting, they were talking about, the workforce being there, the occupational health, that kind of medical practice, being an exciting opportunity for them.
Right. Also, there's a workforce partnership elements in this. Sheila and I believe Brandon, did you meet with the Workforce Partnership Inc. folks?
I did not. This is one meeting I was out for. I can't speak to this one. So
okay.
Sheila will have to take this one.
Yeah, Sheila, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, just the workforce partnership group that Roberta heads up, they would be interested in a satellite office in this facility so that they would have a presence in DeSoto for the workforce needs of a lot of development going on.
Yeah.
And they serve Johnson County, Douglas, and Wyandotte County currently.
Yep. Okay. And then the next item here is major employers. So Sheila has reached out to several major employers here, including Huhtamaki, Engineered Air, Merck Animal Health, Custom Foods, several of which have offered letters of support. All understand the benefit of this sort of an endeavor, and would also benefit, potentially be members or partners in the pursuit here. So that gets us through the staff report, the information that was put together so far. Again, as I said before, there's a lot of weighty policy decisions to be made. Submitting the grant doesn't obligate us to any of them. It is your tacit indication that you're excited enough about these opportunities that it's a bit of a risk to take, although we're not putting $3 million down on the table now. If we get the grant, there's going to be this decision point that we're going to have to find $3 million in our CIP somewhere to fund it, or through other grant sources.
And that can happen sooner rather than later, because this with the time frame.
We'd have to be within next spring.
So it's due on the 18th. When are they making announcements?
Sheila, do you know?
It likely would be February, so you would probably have some sort of a grant agreement by February, early March. They want you to get going, go quickly to get the construction started, since the funds have to be expended in 2026.
Any chance that any of our supporting partners would be contributors in the funds to get it started?
Well, we asked a lot of them. There wasn't, nobody put money on the table at this point, but you know, that could be, once the grant was authorized, that could be something that you know, we could work on between now and when the agreement comes, but there's no guarantee of that at all. The only one I think that would be somewhat kind of indicated that there was a great interest was the University of Kansas Health Systems, that they would rent space from you, which you know, and then sell the land at a fair market value. They were really the ones that were the most kind of willing to put that, you know, on the table. The school district, I know, at one time worked with the city of Shawnee. They were going to have a community center. They were looking at building or basically having a partnership with the city of Shawnee for that community center. The vote did not, they voted for a community center bond. It went down, and so they didn't pursue that, but there was some interest back, I believe that was 3 or 4 years ago when they were looking at that. So they would have to go through their governing body to talk further about what the partnership would be, but there's precedent of them working with local government to fill some of their athletic needs.
Is there a grant cost as far as application cost?
Not to my knowledge, Sheila. Can you speak to that? Not to my knowledge.
No, there's no fee to apply other than that you do get more points for the, if you put more money into leverage, you get more points on, they have a point system on how they grade it. I think the positive aspect of what we're talking about with the 20 million, with a $3 million match, that's the minimum, the 15%. So you would get the minimum points on that category. The need, probably you would get the majority of the points for that, as well as the partnerships. You would get maximum points there, having different public aid entities signing a letter of agreement and partnerships going into the facility, as well as your major employers having that partnership. So I think you would do well on the rest of the application. The least probably you'd probably get the minimum points of just the match.
So on the timeline, you keep saying 26. It's in here that there's a kind of timeline on page, whatever it is, 3 is in there twice. June 30th, 2026, have construction complete. But then it says that the timeline runs through September 30th, 2025, and there may be an opportunity for a no-cost extension through June of 26. Are we pretty darn certain we can get to June of 26?
The child cabinet staff said that because of the short time frame and that sort of thing, they're pretty open to allowing that if you're making progress to have the extension.
Because if you back up an 18-month construction schedule, then you need to be started beginning 2025. So we've got 2024 if you use progressive design build or something like that, which
They probably would have to do that.
Yeah, you'd have to go that route, but that's probably pretty doable because you've got 9 months in 24 to get, 30% design and get the pricing firmed up. So it's an extraordinarily aggressive schedule, but starting in February, I feel like it could be a doable schedule. And then, I wouldn't want to say, let's go into this. One, this is a flyer. I mean, this is, go big or go home, right? So I think we go big, but I wouldn't want us to be in a situation where we get picked and then we get 2-3 months down the road and go, well, we can't pull this thing off. But I wouldn't miss the application date in a week because we can use the next 2 months to withdraw before a decision's made. So you got a couple of more months to kind of firm up. You got a couple months to kind of firm up our game plan and say, hey, we want to withdraw our application before they've made a decision on how to expend those funds. That would be my kind of feeling of hearing all this is let's get the application in and then sort it out a little more.
So I've got a couple of questions on the funding. Reading through this, it talks about the $3 million being the match, and then needing to extend the utilities on site. So is it 3 million plus utilities, or the 3 million includes the utilities?
It would be 3 million plus utilities, although the site we picked essentially has sewer, water, the roads are there. I think the utility extension costs would be nominal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And has there been any discussion of where or how we would look at coming up with that $3 million?
No, that's the thing.
Nope.
But we do have, what we will do at the first part of next year is we're gonna overhaul our capital improvements program. And so that's a program that over a 5-year period, I think it's averaged about $10 million over 5 years. That was before, in the before times. I think that'll be much more robust moving forward with the revenue projections that we have, that we're working with in our budget. So if that's any scale of magnitude in terms of capital improvements, $3 million, we would notice it. We would have to be making decisions to forego other things that we might want in favor of this.
Or like this, other grant opportunities come along for
Yeah.
other kinds of infrastructure, and we can offset rather
Yeah,
than forego.
yeah, no, that's true, for sure.
I guess to put the question very directly, this $3 million is not something that we're looking at there being a burden on taxpayers to provide this in addition to the money we currently have in the budget at this point?
Yeah,
Or
I
is
think
that
it's hard to argue that taxpayers will be
Yeah.
paying for
Mhm.
that $3 million.
Yeah.
But we're not going to, I think we can work the capital improvements plan such that we don't have to increase the mill levy by an offsetting amount.
that was, I guess, where I was going, is this a question of we need to raise the mill levy to
Yeah,
come up
I-
with this $3 million?
I'm confident we can, within the context of the capital improvements plan and other revenue projections we have, we can work this into our capital improvements plan and not exceed what we've projected to be our mill levy going forward, which continues on a downward trend.
Would the 3 million be due in a lump sum? And at what point would it be due, or would that be over a time frame?
Not sure. I would assume it would be part of the project funding, which will be due when the contractor
Yeah, so
spends money.
it's gonna play out over 2.5 years.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not like $3 million check.
That's right.
Because some of the things we've talked about that we haven't necessarily started including yet that would potentially help offset would be things like franchise fees from Panasonic and other revenue streams that we have predicted but haven't included in the current budget because we know it's kind of going to be this, but it's probably going to be this, but because of the uncertainty we haven't included. So there are other opportunities for offset in there without affecting the mill levy going up.
I
in
think
there as
it's
well.
fair to say, yeah.
Mike, I would say you would want to make sure that at the very beginning of the project, you have between $1 million and $1.5 million to get the project going, buy the land. So that would be
Yeah.
something that you would need to think about, right?
Yeah, certainly.
So by February, we'd need to know, we would need that $1 million, $1.5 million.
We need to, figure out where that's.
Have a plan for it.
Have a plan for it.
Yeah, because even if we don't make a run at it, we don't have a shot at a community center. We gotta figure out how to come up with $25 million.
And there's a
If we
couple,
make a run at it, we can have a if we make a run at it, we could have a $23 million facility for $3 million.
when there's routinely people asking, where can we work out in DeSoto? Where can we get exercise? Where can we do this? The school district with the pool. I swim at the Shawnee Mission Aquatic Center, which is a Shawnee Mission School District owned facility managed by JCPRD. So again, owned by one entity, managed by another. But our school district has not been very welcome there as far as the accommodation of the schedule between the swim teams, the school districts, and even being somebody that swims there, we're at the mercy of the school district entirely. So it's like, I can't swim Saturday because there's a swim meet. Couldn't swim last Friday and Saturday because there was a swim meet. And so the ability of our school district to have that, so the need that's been stated by the community is there. And it's one of those ones that I would be at least very favorable to say pursue the grant and see what we get. Because if we can end up getting, like Sheila said, okay, our lowest point's the fact that we're saying 3 million for 20 million. But if we actually got that, then we're getting a benefit and asset to the community that people in the community are wanting at 3 million out of 20 million for it, where there's ways that we can offset and look at where to get that without affecting the mill levy. There's other revenue streams coming in, other grant opportunities, but if we don't at least see what we can get from the grant by applying for it, then when we decide to do it in the future, if we decide to do it in the future, we're gonna be paying almost all of it at that point, or a large chunk of it, versus the opportunity that's before us to at least find out, can we get the grant?
The point I would make, I guess, to our credit or our benefit is, we've been through a very accelerated construction process on 2 much bigger scale projects. So if any community is set themselves up to be able to deliver this project, I would think, I mean, that would be us, because we have, gone through the fire. We got Joe.
Yeah, the opportunity to pull it off doesn't scare me really, and you know, again, the expenditure plays out over 2.5 years, so.
Well, that's still over $1 million a year.
Yeah.
It's a project in our CIP that we won't be able to, I mean, we'll have to
Yeah.
look at what we had planned to do in the CIP, and that is already factored into that, mill rate, and we'll have to say, all right, we're willing to push that off to something in the future because we see this as a
But if the grant comes in low, we can say no go.
Well, I would just like to see us have a work session on this real quick. If it's a time sensitive thing, where we can talk this out, and then let her see if there's a way we can get letters of intent from the high school and you know, get some backing that way too, which would leave the financial burden, some of it off the city. And if we can get that done too at the same time, since she's been talking to these people already, and see what they have to say about that, and see if they will do a commitment.
Well, we've got a letter of support. We're not gonna get a letter of commitment for money from the school district. I can't imagine that.
Why not, if they want an indoor pool,
Well, if they wanna use the indoor pool.
or want to manage it? I mean, that's a heck of an opportunity for them.
Well, the other, yeah.
I was
I
gonna
won't
say,
see any other way they could possibly get it unless they want to do a bonding or a funding or
Rent rate.
put it out for, you know, for a vote.
Mm-hmm.
And with the way taxes are now and the way it's hard on people, I don't think that is going to fly.
I was gonna say, I agree with Danny, the work session would be a good thing to go through on this. I don't think we have to do the work session before the grant, because there is no application fee for the grant, and there's no harm, no foul, to where if we apply for the grant and get what we want or don't get what we want, we're not committed by applying for it. But
Well, I don't even think you have to wait that period out, because
but
you've
in
got
the-
until February.
Yeah,
So
well,
you
but-
could have a work session in
Well,
January.
but that's what I'm saying, is we don't necessarily have to have a work session before. Having a work session would be a good thing, but having it before the grant application deadline's not necessary. But having it before, we would have to commit where the money's coming from.
Yeah.
And talk through it that way would be. So that's what I'm saying, I agree with Dan, a work session to go through this, where would it come from, how would we handle it, would be a good thing. Does it have to be done before the grant application deadline? No. I'd say, let's go and apply for the grant, and then let's go ahead and get these discussions at least started of if we get the grant, and go through the variables, and also go through, and that'd be a good time to go through with our new members, the community survey of what people are wanting and how this would align with that. But that would definitely need to be done probably in early January or mid-January, to where by the time the grant is announced, if we get what we want, we've got the plan in place.
Now, we do have the commitment for we would need to do the $20,000 contract BNIM though.
Yeah.
That's right, conceptual design.
Yeah, to get conceptual designing with the application.
Yep.
So that's really the only financial
That's the
bogey that we're looking at.
application fee. if you
Yeah,
will.
that's the application fee.
Right?
But then that would be usable.
Yeah.
During the work
During the work
Yeah.
session, and also if we don't get the grant, to decide 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, we want to put it in the CIP, we at least have a direction to go.
We have a real,
So it wouldn't be lost money.
yeah. It's true.
So I just have a question. It states that that staff is recommending foregoing the application.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, purely based on aggressive timelines,
It
or are
was,
there
and it was based on
anything else that?
2 new council members just being seated and not wanting to throw massive community policy decisions at you, at your feet. So it was sensitivity to that. Obviously, no pride in, or if all this discussion makes all kinds of sense, I think this idea that we could withdraw the application, because my underlying concern is, we have a partnership with the folks at the state. I wouldn't want to be disingenuous in an application and get it awarded and then come back and later deny that money. So
Just wanting to understand if there were any other hesitations other than timeline and new members.
that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other aspect I would come back to, that we've talked about pool, we've talked about the amenities, but the childcare side of it is hypercritical in our community. The ability to have, we're already at a shortage as it is, and not just us, the entire region and the entire country is facing the same issues, to where having that ability to service the newborn through 5 in a facility is going to be something that even this would probably not meet the demand that's going to be in place.
No.
But this would be a huge start towards that, as indicated by the letters of commitment from the community businesses. They're saying, yeah, we take X number of slots.
Yeah, and it's already, we've got the partnership with YMCA, so you got a name brand operator.
Yeah, and the fact that the University of Kansas Health System is willing to work with the property states they understand that there's a need to.
One other question, because I know we have to get the grant in December 18th if we're going for it. How locked in do we need to be by then? Because where I'm going is between grant application and February, would we be able to have some sort of community input or feedback session? I know we have the survey, but this is something now where we're talking about something very concrete versus, broad survey questions. But I would hate to ask for community input if we're already super locked in to exactly what we've said in the grant application. So, to what extent would there be that opportunity for feedback and input between application and moving forward?
Yeah, another tricky part of this, right? I guess the question might become, after the grant application is submitted, is there an opportunity to revise the scope of that based on community feedback? Because if we hear from the community, no way, don't do it, that's easy. But if we hear from the community, there's a different idea, then how could we revise the scope? Sheila, do you have any?
Yeah, the scope of what you're putting in there is very broad. You have to have 3 elements: workforce development, which you could have job fairs at a community center, and that would fulfill that requirement. So that's kind of, easy, check the box. You have to have wellness and health and wellness monitoring and health and wellness facility. It doesn't have anything in the grant application requirements that say you have to have specific types of programming, or you have to have specific types of facilities like a pool or a diving well or any of that. That was added really basically based on kind of what the community had already said, plus what we heard from the school district. And then the third component is the child care. And your real need is the birth to 5, as you have employees that come from across the region and work in your community, which is the basic thing that you have now, but it's going to accelerate. Those parents want to be able to have their children close to them. They can use after care and other facilities that are closer to their homes. for 5 and above, school age and above. So that's really a need. And so the community conversation can be about how much would you be willing to pay for a facility, and then what would you like to see in terms of programming? And I think that would be super helpful as you refine the building facility. But the way that the concept of a community center is, typically it is like an empty shell where you have facilities developed through a process with the community anyway inside. But this would go as basically, you know, a pretty big picture thing besides the details of the child care facility. Does that make sense to you? It's like, I think you can refine what you put in there based on community input as you design it.
Great. I just wanted to make sure that if we move forward, we would have that opportunity for input from the community to look more deeply, like you said, at what would go inside the shell versus just, okay, we had to commit super fast and then we found out that we missed the mark in terms of what we're allocating or what we think those details should be.
Yeah, and community centers typically today are designed as very flexible spaces so that you can offer a variety of different programming, and you bring equipment in and out as those trends change. For example, 5 years ago, you didn't have pickleball courts. Well, Lenexa's got pickleball courts inside their facility, but they're flexible spaces where they can pull those out when pickleball dies and whatever the next thing is that comes about. So flexibility, I think, is what you want to have so that you can respond to what the wellness and recreational desires of your community are and how they change over time.
So I just got an idea from above that, you know, another source of revenue would be naming rights for the facility or specific rooms in there.
Absolutely.
That would help offset. And I did like the discussion with the school district. Perhaps there is an opportunity for a partnership there. I don't know if they're in their current bond program. They may have some funds already kind of designated for some sort of swimming facility that it's not going to happen quick. It's a discussion that their board's going to have to take up. But I think there's an opportunity there for sure.
I did ask the school district mayor if what they currently pay to rent space just for their practice for dive and swim team, and I think it's about $16,000 a year is what they currently rent space for that. So that would offset some of your deficit, but I think I would go and ask again maybe for capital assistance.
I know we've been looking at the child care part of it, and I know that the cost that was for one of the churches was just very, very expensive on the regulations that the state required just to change the facilities to meet those requirements was immense. And the people that were actually going to take over the facility and run the facility, they had to back out. So, you know, even though they talked to the people that wanted childcare and they were going to pay a significant amount because they needed that so desperately. But that's something we need to look into more.
It's my understanding it's so much easier to build new than retrofit for the new child care regulations. There's a very specific safety regulations, and so it makes it very difficult to retrofit.
Yeah, you're right there, because, you know, we had a playground facility and the fence got taken out by the railroad. We would have to replace the fencing between the facility and the railroad. And that was another cost that wasn't expected, but.
Yeah, there's just a big fear that we have a community workshop, we get everybody all charged up for a community center, and we don't get free. Right? You know, so I don't see how we don't go for the grant. Get the application in, have the workshops through January, make a decision by the end of January of if we need to withdraw because we can't make the financials work. Really, that's going to be the only thing, is can we make the financials work?
Right.
It's not going to be, is it a good idea or not a good idea? It's an amazing idea. So I think we forge ahead and commit to the 20 grand on the BNIM. That's my opinion.
Any other discussion thoughts? Any?
You need a motion on that?
I think
or-
we would, well, we would definitely need a motion to go forward
To
with the
pursue the
grant,
grant.
and then.
And the BNIM
And then a
contract.
secondary motion to authorize the, I
Yeah.
think there were several motions.
The first two
It's the
bullet
bullets.
items here up on the screen are probably what we
Yeah.
need to move forward.
Yeah, I just wanna echo that I think, you know, the importance of having the work sessions and getting community input can't be overstated, but at the same time, we have that time between grant application and February to do those things and to have the potential to have a $23 million facility for $3 million is a opportunity that doesn't come around every day. And, you know, especially the childcare needs in this area are just, they're huge, and they're something I've heard about firsthand from folks out in the community and even in surrounding communities, that really needs to be addressed if we're gonna continue to grow and thrive in the way we want to.
Victoria, you've nodded your head up and down a lot. Thoughts, comments?
I mean, we're just approving for our grant, and I don't see why we want it, because like you said, we can pull out if needed, and all we're doing is approving a grant, so. We haven't said, yes, we are doing this, correct?
Right.
It's
Correct.
just for $20 million, yeah.
Well, I'll start making motions, and really, we need to do them all three separate, right, Mayor?
It'd be just the first two.
I'm not sure, I think just the first two. I
Okay,
don't
because
think we need-
there's no
That's
negotiation
later
on
on.
property.
That's
Okay.
later on,
So I'll
yeah.
make a motion to authorize the city administrator to request up to $20 million from the Kansas Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund under the Capital Projects Fund Accelerator Grant, CPF Accelerator Program to construct a space designed to provide a community-driven, holistic approach to meeting the unique needs of regional workers and resident families with young children, being a facility of approximately 40,000 square feet, including 10,000 square feet of childcare.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion?
The only discussion or question I have, and this is a little bit procedural, but do we want to make any commitment in terms of what we're doing between December and February during tonight's council meeting?
I think,
My motion was based on the understanding that there will be a workshop with engagement of key stakeholders.
Okay, great. I don't know if we wanted to put that in there or if that's just understood, but yeah, that's my
What do you
only
think, Mayor?
question.
We're all in agreement on that. I don't
Yeah.
think
Okay,
it has
all right.
to be.
I mean, it's on the record that
Yeah.
that's the basis of it, so.
Good deal.
Yeah.
all right, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Michael.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Tripp.
Yes.
McMoran.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to authorize the city administrator to enter into an agreement with BNIM, an architecture firm, to prepare a conceptual design of the building required for the grant application submittal in an amount not to exceed $20,000.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Lane.
Yes.
McMoran.
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Tripp.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Do we want to look at calendars now for a work session?
Sheila, don't go away. Well,
We need a work, so I think we need a work session early in the month, and then we need to try and have time to schedule a
a
public.
broader
Yes.
constituent,
Exactly.
stakeholders
The
engagement.
stakeholder engagement
Yeah.
later in the month, I would think,
Mhm.
maybe, so that we have time to
By
develop.
mid-month or whatever.
Right.
So would this be like prior to the first council meeting? Or are you thinking
We
a
could,
separate
you know,
meeting?
maybe we could do
I think-
reserve an hour and a half on the,
I was gonna say, I think part of the answer to that question though is, do we think we can address all the issues within an hour? Or do we think we'd need more time on a different night?
I guess I would say,
That would-
if we use that time to frame up, what are we wanting to get? Who should be included in the broader stakeholder study, and what are we wanting to know out? So maybe use it to figure out what's the workshop.
Because we also need to be talking budgetary on where.
And I don't know
Come
that
from.
Mike's gonna have that in time
Uh,
for
with-
early January.
Yeah, early January would be a little difficult, I think, that first week especially.
So maybe two
Or
work.
the second week.
Maybe
So it
two.
sounds
Maybe
like
two shorter work sessions.
Yeah, probably better, yeah.
That might precede both of the council meetings.
Yeah, I mean, that,
Visualize that works for everything.
Yeah, that would work
you
then.
wanna do that? Yeah.
Just block that before both.
6 to 7 before both council meetings, okay.
That works.
Sheila, are you available the
4th and the 18th?
4th?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Great. Great.
So do we need to go ahead and make a motion for the work session so that Brandon can get the public notices out in time?
That would mean I wouldn't have to.
Get the
That,
signatures.
yeah, that's why you're council
And
president.
get the
Yep.
signatures in person instead of having to go, hey.
Yeah, that means I don't have to text you at 5 o'clock in the afternoon saying, "Hey, I need this piece of
I'll
information."
make a
So-
motion that we have a 1-hour work session preceding the January 4th and the January 18th council meetings, starting at 6 to 7 o'clock.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. All right.
Good. Brandon, can you do a meeting maker also to make sure we get that on our calendar?
I will send that out before I leave today. So I don't.
Please, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Sheila.
All right, thanks.
All right, item 5, executive session for land acquisition.
I'll make a motion that we recess into executive session at 8:50 PM for 15 minutes to discuss acquisition of easements for new sewer lines serving Panasonic pursuant to the land acquisition KSA 75439B6, with the open meeting resuming in the council chambers at 9:05 PM.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we'll be back.
Nope, I have no reason.
There's one right there.
Oh, yeah, there's one right there.
There's one there.
Brandon's really good about that.
Didn't know to look behind my head for water.
What's going on?
Do what?
She said she was
Our
It's not gonna be center construction at a fast pace, it should be everything else around here.
Right. Have you applied?
We're trying to make a chance of getting a grant. Biggest challenge. I said before that. Oh, I know.
I'm being trying to make this.
There's a big financial commitment. The first 5 years, we get supplement, and between $1 million and $300,000. That's more. Because that comes out of operating budget. That lady we asked to put that. They were awesome. Pools, community centers.
Oh yeah, everything. Yeah, they all.
They never pay for this stuff.
No, when I was in Leavenworth, they lost it.
Not all true.
What's that? We put it in the
Why don't we, what are you gonna cut out and see?
Well, it was the conversation.
It's mostly.
Yeah. Well, I assume that's what we would do.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was really just so different.
Process, which is, there's a lot of details. But, you'd be. Yeah, the pollution out there,
We lost everybody that was here.
This was the area, have you ever seen the map? That's how it's very dirty spots.
It's full house.
Kind of looks like the measles a little bit, it's all over the place, not like, it isn't groundwater, all of that's a lot of acreage, but most of the testing has a very low concentration. Yes. Right. They, when they first.
Jill, hey, can you come down, you give me water? Just throw it over here. Go on. You're good, just toss it, you're good. Scream.
Good shot.
Cut the clip of it.
You threw it directly at
That's
it.
why I wanted to.
Joe, you did play college football, right? That's what I heard?
Well, I caught the football.
Ah, there we go, okay, on the other side of it, okay, that makes sense.
Well, yes, the other one was, like this being, falling off of the structures, primarily the water tower. Yeah, and lead is a better, doesn't absorb, it's there, pick it up. And then the other was asbestos, again, off the buildings mostly, and pipes, things like that. So the method of disposal would be, you know, putting it in a cap where it's inert, and stay that way. And then there's a, they take it to, well, they take it to the Johnson County Waste. But it, you know, as they run your garbage down, they put caps over it. And, oh yeah, you know, the thing with lead and asbestos, those rock. It really is good. It's on our element table. You know, so you can't, it's an element. So that's the method that we use, as long as it's away from human consumption.
Why?
It's in our dirt somewhere. Oh, yeah.
No, I don't, so I don't actually use Edgar.
See,
uses it.
I
So
say
something
things
is-
slightly different.
I use it for
Yeah.
pulpboard once a month, just to make sure it's still running.
But
This is my backup, if this ever freezes, which it has. So, I forget what it was, I think it was planning commission, it just,
Oh, really?
in the middle of it. And luckily I'd been here 18 months, so I knew I was like, okay, just look down the list and was taking notes.
we can make further south and put it there. I take the money, but not everybody. But no, Mike Manson and so Mike's daughter Kim,
Fortune, I'm inviting you to this thing, they said you're helping.
Just what's that?
I'm inviting you to this thing.
Oh, okay. What is it?
Meeting.
Oh, the meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
I
No,
assume
he's
that
on. I think his term is.
if we get it, I'll be involved up to my eyeballs.
And,
That won't be such a bad thing, I mean, because,
when the transfers.
we'll be done with the design of the water and wastewater plant, so that'll all be under construction.
I think it's
We'll
better
be,
inside the community so that you can have these topics.
Yeah, we'll-
Try to impact it. The planning
yeah, we're
commission.
moving forward pretty good with the well field, so. So, yeah, that shouldn't be too bad.
Anything, yes, no, planning commission here.
It'd just be, yeah, it'd be interesting as we do the CIP, how we look at,
This,
Don't put it on your.
funding our roadways.
somebody said to me, Mayor,
Like Pinner from the school to downtown.
he said, it was hot.
Well, yeah, well, that's what I didn't know if we're gonna do bonding or whether, depending on its revenue stream.
I don't wanna be facetious,
We're
but
supposed to
nobody
be.
thinks
Yeah,
not
well, it's a policy,
Yeah.
that's the thing, if you do it.
I didn't like it, others were
Does,
laughing.
did you guys bond the streets? Leavenworth, they bought street all the
So
time.
our mineral overlay was south.
Yeah,
Big ago.
But you can, right, you can
We had
plan it.
about $1.5 million overlay, but then all of our major improvements were all bought. Stormwater improvements,
6
roadway
lanes,
improvement.
that they are planning 6 lanes.
You know, like if we need a 95th Street from
Improved intersection.
Kill Creek all the way to Etcherton.
Evening Star is the next
We did.
intersection.
I'm assuming we get Johnson County involved, 'cause, you know, part of that's, they part of that's Suffolk County. I assume that's Suffolk County.
Which way, what were you saying?
95th Street from Kill Creek to Lexington.
So there's a road.
I don't know if 95th Street, at least from Kill Creek to Lexington, if that's all, if the right of way is ours, and just the county
Yeah,
puts
this
it
is
on
the plan.
the south side.
You guys are right here.
So I know as we go, so I know once you get to that sunflower,
Yeah.
That
that's
get
the
those
county.
bigger
I assume that's all county.
trucks.
And
And it goes straight down.
So we just want to try to, you know, and I guess you can make improvements to sunflower.
Here, in the middle.
And then, at the
Eventually,
face, and then.
it could be another, that's where it
nice
started.
to demolish
That's where it started.
and redevelop.
Keto.
Third.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, that house is gone? Yeah. There was another one that moved, right? On the north side of the street.
We were talking to somebody, I think it was Mike Osborne, about that. Yeah, that someone applied.
Yeah, I saw it move. I saw it move in the middle of the road. Oh.
No, you do it.
You do it. Yeah.
But it's moved. Like down the road from the original owner.
Oh, really?
And so,
I can't get rid of this thing. I can't get rid of it.
All right, well, I have another project for you. But I help you with a lot of coordination.
I wondered what was going on because I was driving 103rd coming back and then the roads. I like, okay, so the side, but I'm like, well, I drove up there, I was like, there's a house in the middle of the road. And I'd forgotten it was on the north side of the street. But that's funny. So the guy that originally bought it, sold it, built it, sold it, moved to Eudora, and now it followed him within the house. That's very interesting. Well, it's nice to meet you. You're gonna, yeah, I would apply for the RAP board, and if they get 25, then you'll experience it. There's great information, you're gonna get a lot of information, tons. Can you make a change?
No, I don't, they redid the pool. And it's,
It's 9,000.
some facilities around it, it's outdoor.
Well, I don't, you know, I didn't, he said you guys were around. I have an idea. So, the school district.
No.
I think we have to.
Yeah, no, Kansas City just built one. And then
There's new ones somewhere out there, I believe, or Westwood.
Oh, we're talking about doing this, I think they're talking about trying to do that in Westwood.
Like soft center. Because Rowan. And you're.
It's up off of 435, north of,
Now, maybe that's not plan or anything else.
20, 35.
And I don't know, I just. Well, it's an elementary, so it's not gonna be a football field and all the lights.
Where is it, 435?
So you like to go to the airport.
It's different.
What's the city up there? There's Kansas City and then there's,
Kansas City, Washington City, there's
So you
Riverside.
could sell your front yard. Yeah, I mean, sort of, you could sell your front yard. No, I'm serious, it's kind of, I mean, the kids are gonna be.
yeah, I mean, just as you cross and make the
That's
building,
not as.
and you pass the church up there.
Again,
With the statue that's all lit up.
Sort of, you're in.
As you go to the airport.
Yeah, no.
Well, I locked myself in this. I'm good.
It's all Kansas City.
You don't, those things start with the G.
Oh, really? No.
If you thought that was some idea and you went on it, so I know the guys over there are really good.
Drive you nuts.
But,
Riverside, not Riverside.
No, not Riverside.
Not
well, you could,
Um, So Nick, Gladstone's a third.
Gladstone's a
Yeah, so it is
third. That's what
Gladstone.
you're thinking.
Yeah, they've got a really, it's not too old. They have a really cool community center. We had some meetings there.
But it's yours.
It was really, it was neat. So,
You can do
that's
a lot.
They just perform. It's center there.
Yes.
You did well. You would want to almost do, I guess you can spread it out, but, and there's like 2 stories, so they've got, aquatics on the main level.
I haven't.
I mean, I told them.
Takes up some of this. Especially down
Well,
there.
except the back, you know, they got the, now Leslie's there, you know, they got
If you
that
did,
back.
you know, you set it off to one side, you did multiple stories. Or
Yeah.
you have,
Set your destiny
you can do.
with a
basketball
friendly.
courts,
Yeah, East York is huge.
Courts,
I'm
that you
gonna
can
take
convert to
off.
basketball,
Yeah.
volleyball, pickleball, and then the center floor, you have office space.
Good night, Brandon, Joe,
Good night.
see you guys, better sign in.
You made it. You made it
Only one,
almost.
3.
I know who you are. Don't worry about it.
Oh,
I know what to find.
okay, I'll just write that. But I'm gonna bring in my application for the tax abatement on that stump property before the.
There you go.
See you guys.
Take care. That was the stump property.
Dave is.
Yeah.
Brandon, I don't appreciate your text.
I'm just telling you.
Go on. This is bad.
Oh, excuse me, Danny. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Joe threw
No
some.
problem.
Joe threw some.
Always happens. You come back and everybody's gone.
We still have our sheriff's deputy here.
Yeah, I say,
No
no
weapons, law
problem.
enforcement still
Because
here.
she's paid to be here.
No, it's just because I love council meetings so much.
Oh.
Good comeback.
All right, it is 9:05. We are back in regular session.
I will make a motion to allow the city administrator to pursue right-of-way acquisition with a budget not to exceed $240,000.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Tripp,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
McMorran,
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Advisory report, city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. No report tonight. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. City attorney.
Same, nothing.
City engineer.
No reports
No
tonight.
report. All right, good report, Joe. Assistant city administrator.
I will round it out and no report, Mr.
All
Mayor.
right, guys, good job. Did you do Joe?
Huh? I did, Joe.
Oh, you went so quick, I missed it.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Kevin?
I got
No?
nothing.
Rob?
Welcome, new council members. You got thrown into baptism by fire tonight across the board, so, and you survived. So welcome, glad to have you. I think I said most of my comments related to our individual earlier, but I would like to have a clarification because she did speak as for somebody else, as if she was representing somebody else, to know if she was speaking as a individual or as a representative.
Good. All right. Danny, anything for the group tonight?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Victoria? All right. Courtney?
I just wanted to say, it's an absolute honor to serve the people of the city of DeSoto, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with you all.
All right. Well, I will echo the welcome comments. Welcome both of you. Glad to have you here sitting on the council. And I think I'll just end my comments there. Look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. We are adjourned.
We gotta have a new team.
I know.
We'll see, was it a council president thing, or was it just a organic sort of behavior.
Whoever's ready to get there.
They're usually not this.
It was organic.
Yeah, that's where we're probably gonna go, see if they're
Oh,
still there
Lori,
doing it.
Lori's.
I mean, it's not fun to do, so I figured I'd drive
Well,
past.
that's where she left, when she left.
That was our thing.
Went to
That
go
was
grab
our
some
one little
presents.
thing.
Had a thing.
We have things.
Yeah.
Was there a board with us?
And now I'm missing. Now there's a empty spot. Now there's a
Yeah, just right there, yep.
I appreciated
What I'll
that,
do
yeah.
is I need to send it off to the county so they have notification if there's one in.
Not just on the Charlotte.
Oh, guess I need to.
How many times in Charlotte?